Hey, how's it going? Thanks for clicking on the link to this video, or if you're watching it on YouTube, or if you got notified about it from my email list, thank you for taking a second or a little bit of time out of your day to really listen to this video. And I'm pretty much going to be talking about how I got into crowdfunding. And this is a question I get a lot. I've been in the industry since 2012, been blogging on crowdcrux.com, I run kickstarterforum.org, crowdfunding forum, and a few other sites that I've started in the industry. It also came out with products. You know, my ebook, my courses, so a lot of stuff, my podcast. These are all things that have been really, for me, the goal of demystifying the crowdfunding process. But why do I actually have that mission? I just want to share a little bit of that today. I hope you get something out of it. If you're trying to start a business venture, I think my story might also have some interesting points or interesting takeaways. So here it goes. So my name is Salvador Brigman. Most of my friends will call me Sal. My nickname also in my personal life is TK, but most people are going to call me Sal in a business context. And basically, I got interested in crowdfunding around 2012. And I know a lot of people did also around that time because of the Jobs Act. And basically what the Jobs Act proposed to do, and it's actually now coming into effect, which is really cool. I mean, it took a long time to do that. It took way longer than it should have. But in 2012, the Jobs Act was all about allowing anyone in America to invest in a startup company. So you as an individual could invest in the next Uber or the next Snapchat or the next Facebook. And as an entrepreneur, you can actually raise money from the crowd. It's kind of like Kickstarter or Indiegogo for equity crowdfunding. And at the time, you could only invest in these types of companies if you were an accredited investor, meaning having a very high net worth or having a lot of annual income, far more than mine. So I got really interested in that just from an economic standpoint, but also because I wanted to participate in it as well. So I was, at the time, an undergraduate at George Washington University doing my studies in economics. I did have a lot of majors when I was in college. I also have a background in marketing, in computer science, so I have done other things, but I actually ended up settling on economics. And that's only something I actually learned about in college, so it's kind of interesting there. But I was doing my mini thesis, and I really wanted to do something on equity crowdfunding, but there wasn't all that much data out there. So I decided to look at Kickstarter. And the more I looked at Kickstarter, the more I looked at some of these campaigns that were, some are like raising hundreds of thousands of dollars, some are raising like $1,000, and some are failing to get backers at all. I started to ask myself, like, why is that? Why is it that one campaign can receive a bunch of money for a potato salad and other campaigns are getting none, and they have a lot of merit, in my opinion? Maybe the video isn't as well done, maybe the reward tiers aren't attractive. Why is it? So as I started to dig more and more, I decided that I wanted to do my study comparing the different categories on Kickstarter and how the variables for success are going to differ from category to category. So for example, if you launch in the gaming category, your social network might matter less and might impact your success less than if you launch in the publishing category, or you launch in the theater category, or you launch in the film category. Or maybe there are actually categories where your video doesn't matter at all. Or there are categories where it really does make the total difference between a successful campaign and a not so successful campaign. So I started to get interested in this. I started to do research. I ended up doing a logistic regression with a large amount of data. And I put together my study, my thesis, submitted it. So this is pretty much what got me interested in the industry. But alongside, I was also blogging and sharing some of my findings. I was also writing news, just sort of me like keeping up with the news in the industry. I was like sharing opinions about news, things that were happening in the crowdfunding industry, things that were happening related to Kickstarter and Indiegogo. But I really didn't have the focus of really wanting to help creators, of wanting to help entrepreneurs in a very tangible way until I started to get questions. Until I started to get people asking me questions about the best practices for a crowdfunding campaign or how they could really improve theirs. And what I really started to discover was I myself, I come from a very marketing sales background. to me, it's like a lot of the stuff that I feel like I know is either common knowledge or that I've discovered from doing many other different business ventures. I've actually failed probably at 4 or 5 startups before I actually got into blogging seriously. So I do have a lot of knowledge on the marketing front. And for me, this was a lot of knowledge that was very common. But many of these entrepreneurs, many of these creative types came from the creative background. And they really didn't consider the marketing components of a crowdfunding campaign, of a Kickstarter campaign, of an Indiegogo campaign. And I could help them in that way. That to me was, it was so cool that I could share some of my knowledge with my audience, what was growing into be what is now my blog, the forum with over 6,000 members, crowdfunding forum, a lot of different ways that people can ask questions, can connect with other creators, and can really just learn the best practices of what is working now with crowdfunding. And it doesn't even have to be on Kickstarter or Indiegogo. I've talked about how some campaigns are self-hosted, how some campaign creators actually host the campaign on their website, and what are the best marketing practices that are working right now. So, where does this story lead? Well, as I got more and more interested in helping creators, as I got more and more interested in really making an impact in this area of alternative finance, you might want to call it. You could call it a new way of funding. I just sort of felt drawn to it. I almost felt an obligation to help out these creators who they really just did not know where to begin. I felt a tremendous sense of purpose, that it was really my job, getting all of these questions, getting all of these emails, getting all of these comments to demystify this process for the world. That sounds really, really ambitious. That sounds ridiculous, but it is something that I enjoy doing. It's something that I love to talk with new entrepreneurs, people that are working on their ideas. I love to help them in any way that I can. Right now, I can really only help in scalable ways, like my Ask Sal podcast, or if I reply to people on my forum occasionally, but I don't do too much direct consulting. There's just no way for me to reply to all those emails. It would eat up all of the time in my day. But that being said, that's sort of my story of how I got into the industry. There's a lot more story there, if anyone ever wants to know. But in terms of growing the business and growing the blog and really learning more about this whole fundraising medium myself, so there is a lot to learn. But most of the learning that I have done has actually been just getting in the heads of creators, of entrepreneurs who are succeeding. I myself, I have my own marketing knowledge, but that will only go so far. There are categories that I would never launch a campaign in because I don't have a background in art or in theater. I'm not a theater guy. I don't think I'm that very entertaining. I should work on my entertaining aspects. But that's something where I will bring on creators onto the blog or onto the podcast, and really what I love to do. I actually used to want to be a therapist or like a psychologist. I really love to get inside people's heads, get inside their hearts, and understand the workings there. Like, why is it that they decided to launch this way? Why did they reach out this way? What did they do to really be successful? To me, that's very rewarding, and it's cool to just adopt someone else's mental model of the world as well when I'm interviewing some of these guests on my podcast. So that's really how I also will supplement my own gaps in my knowledge, and then I try to bring that knowledge to the audience in very actionable tips, very actionable strategies or tactics, things that they can do to launch, boost their campaign. But so where's all of this going? One of the most common questions I'll get is, so do you want to do this for the rest of your life? Do you want to be the crowdfunding guy? Do you really, is this what you want to do for a living? And I am doing it for my living, my income, but the thing that I really find inspiring, the thing that I really find that gets me wanting to get involved, to wake up, like spring out of my bed, go to work and really make a difference is these entrepreneurs and these creative types who have dreams, who have ideas, who want to go from point A to point B. Maybe you're doing a job you don't like. Maybe you want to learn how to earn your income full time from whatever passion you have, how to really make your passion your full-time job. That's what inspires me to be a small part of that process, or that transition point, going from doing something I don't like to, wow, I just discovered this whole new audience. Like, I just discovered all of these backers who actually are interested in what it is I'm putting out into the world. I actually just jump-started this business, which now I talk to creators that I've interviewed in the past are maybe doing 6 figures of their own business, or doing even more of that. It's really cool. It's really inspiring to be able to be at the crux, see what I did there? At the crux of that point in their life where they're discovering something new and really what is possible for them. What is really what they can do in this world, what they can contribute to the world, and creating a business that is right for them. Something that they're passionate about. Being able to do that in such a way that makes change in the world, that allows them to earn an income and make money and continue to put out these widgets, whether it's in books or put on more plays. To me, that is one of the most rewarding things about what I do. And that's really my overarching goal here, is to change, to really inspire, but also to the thing that like really, really irks me, the thing that gets me extremely ticked off and mad, is when I see someone who is trying to do something, and had they the right knowledge, or had they the right strategy, or had they the right mentors, the right people to learn from, even just small bits of knowledge, their results would be drastically different. That really sucks. Like, it really hurts, like, down here to see someone like, man, I knew if they did this, they just changed this with their campaign, or they changed this with their whole process, their whole approach to entrepreneurship, they would be far more successful. I'll see people in my own life, entrepreneurs I coach, who maybe are doing a business that's not suited to their skill set. And I know they could be very successful if they actually focused on their own skill set rather than trying to do something that they like saw in the media and thinking like, this is a trend, like this is cool. That really hurts me. That really like irks me when someone is not like, there's a strategy out there and they aren't exposed to it, or for whatever reason they just don't, it's not on their radar. So that is another thing that I really am inspired to do going forward. That is to make, I wouldn't say make people smarter, but to encourage smart decision making, and to encourage to encourage the best practices of an industry, to encourage the best ways to go about crowdfunding, or going from your full-time job to your passion to doing that full-time. These are the things that get me excited personally. So that's something that I think going forward I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. I mean, at my very core, I love to share information. I love to share knowledge. I love to share things that I'm learning, and also bring knowledge from other people, and really be that gateway that brings it to this other group that needs to learn this particular topic. So that's what I'm all passionate about. I do think I might do some investing when Title III of the Jobs Act is in effect. If you're listening to this video, it could already be in effect. And I think that I really would love to become more of a mentor in the space, really also be using my knowledge to, of course, help the products and the entrepreneurs that I find just really fascinating, very cool, and innovative. But that's pretty much my story here. My basis is really wanting to make an impact, wanting to change the industry. And thank you so much if you stumbled on this video from my blog, my YouTube channel, my podcast, one of the emails I sent out. I hope that any of the content I've put out thus far that you've consumed has been helpful. I hope that, obviously I cannot help everyone. I cannot reply to all emails. I have very specific channels, ways that I help people, like my Ask Sal podcast, where people can submit a question and I'll answer it on the podcast, or my forum, or replying to comments. Those are very specific ways that I like to reply to people. I don't usually reply when I just get an email being like, hey, would you give me an hour's worth of feedback on my campaign? And just like they have the link there. Like I don't usually engage those types of emails, because otherwise I'd spend my whole day replying to emails and basically giving people advice and that kind of sense. So thank you for listening to this video. If there is a comment section down below, depending on where you're listening to this from, I'd love it if you could leave a comment. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'd be happy to answer them. But a fun fact about me, I'll close this video out with, let's just say, three fun facts about me. Not that you would like, if you do care, awesome. But I'm really banking that like most people that listen to this probably wouldn't really care. But 3 fun facts about me. Okay, 1, I fenced for 10 years. I was a foil fencer for 10 years. And what does that mean? Around when I was 10 years old, 9 years old, I really got into like watching Zorro movies and watching just like action movies. And I really was like, hey, I want to do this. Like, this looks really cool. This looks fun. So I got into fencing, ended up doing it until I was around 21-ish. And I sort of stopped in college just because there wasn't really a program at my college in Washington, D.C., but I really love the competitive aspect of it. I love learning the entire like new sport and just becoming much more accustomed to it, and then having fun, and it is a tremendous amount of fun. So I did that for 10 years, and I did summer nationals, I competed at events, like all that kind of stuff. It was a lot of fun. The second man, I guess the second quality, or like a second really interesting tidbit about me, is that I was adopted from El Salvador. I do not speak any Spanish. My parents are American. They're white American. Grew up in a suburban neighborhood. Culturally, I do consider myself to be white. I don't have a Spanish cultural reference at all. I just grew up in a very white town also. So I'd really learned Spanish in my high school years, but I was never all that amazing at it. I still want to learn it a bit more. I think I need to be immersed in an environment to really learn it, but it is something that in the future I'd like to learn a little bit more. But that's a fun fact. And being adopted from a third world country, my family, my biological family, I only knew my mother, and we lost contact with her like a ways back, maybe when I was like 1 or 2. So, and I was adopted at 1. So I really have no contact with my parents at all, my biological parents. I didn't know anything about my brothers or sisters I could have, which I probably do, considering that's like a very common thing to have a lot of kids in a third world country, even in America, But the thing that really just I take away from being adopted is I feel like I won the lottery once in my life. It's already happened. Like this very nice couple decided to adopt me, and now I'm living in the best country in the world. I had a very nice childhood. I have a lot of resources at my disposal, whereas living in a third world country, I could have been drawn into gang violence. I could have been drawn into lots of different like drugs and all that kind of stuff. So I'm very thankful to be adopted, and I do feel like I won the lottery once. All right, the third thing, the last thing for this YouTube video, the last thing that I'm going to mention here is, ooh, man, this is a good question. I asked myself hard-hitting questions. I think that one thing that not a lot of people might not know about me is the tremendous amount of failure that I have experienced. And I say that laughing because it doesn't matter in the long run, failure. It really doesn't. No one remembers your failures at all, pretty much. I had 5 failed startups before I did this company. When I first came to New York, I was living on dollar pizza and ramen. I was trying to do a web development venture, and the other ventures I did, I tried to do a recruitment software venture. I tried to do a music platform, kind of like SoundCloud, You can see how I was not differentiated enough. And we did basically like connecting bands and artists together. That didn't really work out. I tried doing a restaurant loyalty app that we raised $50,000 for, but it ended up not really getting enough traction. So I've done a lot of different business ventures. I've done a lot of different startup things in the business world. So that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize is just the high, very high degree to which I fail. Even every day, like it's sort of the 80-20 rule. A lot of the blog posts I write, I know that not many people are going to read them. Maybe the 20% of all of the blog posts I've written contribute, the vast majority, I think, of resonance with my readers. But that's kind of how it works. I made a very strong commitment when I first started this entire journey that if 1 in 10 startups, let's say if 9 out of 10 startups fail, and this is like any kind of startup, let's say, then I'm just going to try 10 startups. Like, I'm just going to do 10 and I have to win. Or I'm going to do 20. At the time I'm recording this, I'm 24 years old. I could do 20 startups over my lifetime, and one of them is going to succeed just based on that statistic. So rather than looking at it like, oh man, like only 1 out of 20 startups succeed, or like 1 out of every small business, is gonna make it 10 years out of like 20, I'm just gonna do 20. Like, I'm gonna just keep doing it until I succeed. That was sort of my overall thought process. And this also is true of blog posts or podcasts or what's becoming now books for me. That I am willing to write as many blog posts as it takes until I find one that resonates with a reader, or I'm willing to put out as many podcasts as it takes until I get to that one that really, really I understand, like, oh, okay, this is what people want to listen to, or okay, this is what's really resonating with the listener base. Same with YouTube videos, or with books. There's a huge statistic that the majority of books are only selling less than 1,000 copies for sure. But there are obviously those like outliers that are selling lots. But how do you get to that point? You write a lot of them. That's sort of my philosophy of life, that I know I'm not going to get it right the first time. I know that whatever I'm doing, it's not going to be right the first time. So my philosophy is to do a lot of it. That's my last fact. I hope you enjoyed this video. You get to know a little bit more about who I am, me, TK, Salvador, whatever you'd like to call me. You get to know a little bit more into my world. But thank you for listening to this. If you're still listening, that's really cool. I hope you got something out of my story. And stay tuned. I'm probably going to have a lot more content coming out. So always keep your ear to the grindstone, because I do put out a lot of content. But thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.